Hello, and welcome to Arcana Drive. My name is Arcana, but I won't be a drive this evening because I don't have my license. Previously on the channel, we discussed the way that having power can be as victimizing as it is empowering. In order to understand that, please watch the previous video on this topic, the victimization of having power. By the way, the spoiler warning from the last video still applies. Berserk, The Boys, and Chainsaw Man are some of my favorite pieces of media and are very well regarded. Please experience them for yourself before watching this video. Now that you are well acquainted with the way I think power can create victims, I want to dive a little deeper into the topic. In my first video, I discussed that the way power victimizes the one wielding it is due to the social pressures they face and how their powers alienate them from others. I didn't, however, get into why this was. So, why is this? Is it just that having power is inherently alienating? Well, I think it depends. I know, the phrase I say more often than hello, but truly I do think it is dependent on the situation, the person, the powers, the surroundings, etc. Referring back to my examples from the last video, I would say a Venn diagram could be drawn. Step 1 is external problems with power, while step 2 is internal. In this example, internal problems with power refers to when the power itself results in one's alienation, while external is when the power isn't inherently alienating for the wielder, but the response of others to it is. Some wield power that inherently sets them apart. Some people are just people, and others are a little mix of both. I, once again, think it depends. For me, Makima is an internal type. Ultimately, I think the very nature of her powers inherently sets her apart from others, regardless of how people act towards her. This is due to her nature as the control devil, wherein she has the ability to control anyone in a manner akin to brainwashing. Her ability works specifically on those she views as lesser than her, which means with the right amount of all-girls Catholic school bullying, she'd be powerless, but in the world of Chainsaw Man, this just isn't the case. Makima's powers are a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you know you can control people, you very likely automatically start to view them as lesser than you due to that fact. Their agency is immediately impeded on by your powers, and a lack of agency in one's life puts them under you. At work, you likely respect your boss, who has power over you, a lot more than you respect the teenager who's only here for the summer, the one you can boss around. Respect is in relation to where someone falls on the bosses you around versus gets bossed around by you scale. Those equal to you are people who you have equal domination and subordination to, like your friends. Whereas, those that have dominion over you, like parents, bosses, or your... Hang on, sorry, my lawyer's on the phone? What's that? I shouldn't mention the clock? Why not? Everybody knows I'm... Yeah, sure, got it. Sorry about that. Or your teachers you view as above you, due to the fact that they have power or some degree of agency over you. Likewise, those you have power over, for example, your younger siblings, your students, or your employees, you view as lower than you. Maybe not like morally or like they're lesser human beings, but nonetheless they are below you in a sense, and this is due to the power exchange. As a result, having an inherent ability to control people pretty much fucks you over in the whole equality thing. Like I said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Makima's doomed from the start to be alienated from others due to her control of them. She cannot form proper relationships due to the natural divide between herself and others. Thus, she is immediately cursed with the loneliness I discussed in the prior video. When it comes to why this is, the main star of this video, the answer lies within. The why is her power. Thus, she's a high internal problem with power. Meanwhile, Griffith is a high external, at least until the end of the Golden Age arc. Yes, he is an exceptional swordsman. He is driven and charismatic, but that's kinda it. There are many skilled swordsmen in Berserk. You kinda have to be skilled swordsmen to live there most of the time. Pretty much everyone in the entire Band of the Hawk is skilled swordsmen. Griffith is revered though, despite the fact that Guts manages to best him several times. Yes, the Band of the Hawk in particular do appreciate Guts for his skill, but he still gets to talk to them as equals due to the fact he's not Griffith. If Griffith is revered for his sword skill, then surely Guts should be as lonely as Griffith. But he's not. He's friends with the Band of the Hawk, despite often bossing them around. So what sets Griffith apart? Is it because he has personality? But then why is Judo able to form relationships? Judo is as charming, kind, and confident as Griffith was, while Guts shares his skill. If it's not either of those factors that set him apart, is it the combination? And if so, why? Can a person only have one good trait before they're leagues above the rest? What sets Griffith apart isn't just the combination of traits, especially given Judo is also skilled with a sword. Rather, it is the way he is viewed by others. His status as the leader of the Band of the Hawk sets him apart, despite the fact there are other named characters in Berserk of similar skill and sword, and even similar personality. Realistically, Judo has the charisma to lead, Guts has the personality and the skill to do so too. Sure, the Band of the Hawk would lack some reality if he did, but it'd function. The only difference between them and Griffith is that they don't lead the band, and that's kind of it, right? Had Guts or Judo gotten in there first, Griffith would probably just be a skilled guy who swords hard with the lads. This is to argue that what sets Griffith apart entirely, especially in the world of Berserk, is the fact that he is the leader of the Band of the Hawk. Had he not been, despite everything he does wield, he could have been chummy with the band the same way Guts and Judo were. Hell, even Kasuga is chummy with everyone, and by all means I can see her being excluded because she's a woman. Feminism win, let's go Mira! Thus, the power he wields isn't the cause of his alienation, he is a high external, wherein the way people view him and his power causes him to be differentiated from the rest, even by those with similar skills and traits. Homelander is more interesting. At a first glance, one might think that a guy with powers that could easily kill people would by nature be set apart from the rest due to the fear factor involved. And Homelander would probably agree with you, and then kill you, probably, because you're implying you're afraid of him. But it makes sense. Homelander might not have inherent control over others the way Makima does, but the fear of being lasered to death is probably an extraneous factor that will influence people in their behavior towards Homelander. And it does do that, and Homelander can, as previously mentioned, smell that fear. However, Homelander's ideas about his powers setting him apart from other people can be easily cracked. Not just because of other supes who are on par with him, like Soldier Boy, but because of the existence of Ryan. Ryan is shown to be developing powers similar to Homelander. Most key in this is the Laser Eyes ability. But Ryan isn't like Homelander. He has genuine connections and gets along well with others. He is polite, well-mannered, and kind, unlike Homelander who's a pure cunt in all sense of the word. This is in spite of the fact he's on par with Homelander in terms of raw powers. So, what's the cause of their differentiation? Why does Ryan have loved ones but Homelander doesn't? It's pretty easy in fact. The case is made by Ryan himself. It's how he was raised. Yes, the powers of Ryan and Homelander definitely cause them a level of inequality to others, but in a world chock full of other supes, this likely wouldn't cause too huge a social disparity. Yet Homelander is deeply, deeply alone. This is because of the way he was raised. Homelander was raised in a lab, which is cold and sterile enough. Even if this was the beginning and end of the situation, he would undoubtedly be affected by the situation. But Homelander wasn't just raised in a lab, he was tortured for the sake of Vort's scientific endeavors and psychologically manipulated into becoming a certain way. He was molded, forced into being an American patriot who was desperate for approval. Further than this, the very scientists and corporate heads in charge of this molding repeatedly and without regard would oftentimes torment or taunt Homelander for their own amusement. For the entirety of his life, Homelander has not been treated as human. As Stan Edgar puts it, he's a product. Nothing more, nothing less. Combining great power with great psychological weakness can only go so well, and it led to Homelander being an unstable psychopath who viewed himself as lower than others, yet simultaneously in need of their approval, while trying to cope by viewing himself as better than others for his powers. Meanwhile, Ryan was raised normally, in a loving household with his mother. Despite the strength he can wield, he was otherwise well-balanced and a model son until meeting the disturbed Homelander. This goes to show that the circumstances of which one are raised are as influential as the powers themselves, pitting Homelander's position in the middle of the two sets. While his powers are partly the cause of his alienation, all supes seem to only mingle with other supes anyways. What seems to push him to the brink of isolation, even in the isolated, is the way he was raised. Where other supes had normal lives, including their powers, Homelander had hell, and the combination has left him in a league of his own, and not in a good way. Ultimately, despite evidencing cases across the spectrum of power and alienation, I think that most cases with power will find themselves alienated by both the power itself and the way people respond to it. For example, Olympians are alienated for their skill, but they're also set apart by the way that they are viewed in society, as skilled and revered for their talents and achievements. Likewise, despite the perhaps lack of skill, at least in comparison, of social media personalities, they too end up alienated for their status. Their humors, personalities, and popularity only lead to others thinking of them as higher, despite the fact that most online creators are just average Joes like you and me who happen to get big. Anyone can post online about their interests. The only reason I have some subscribers and you might not is because I actually started to do it. No person is bigger or better than anyone else, and in real life, it is the perception that makes the person seem bigger than the average Joe. Power, when given to the wounded and left unchecked, will almost undoubtedly create monsters, and it's up to those in proximity to that power to recognize that power for its danger, while also asking if they themselves perpetuate that power. In closing, do you see those with power as human?